To view the world from above is to see it from a new perspective. It steps back from the action, observes from the outside, and considers the big picture on a grand and sometimes intimidating scale. It is for this reason that it has been considered God's eye view. Aerial photography is a modern invention. During World War I, the aeroplane was able to capture vast images of the urban and war-torn landscape. These wartime photographs offered panoramic and cartographic images of the environment, emphasising the minuscule and fragile position of humans amongst the landscape at unnaturally and often uncomfortably high perspectives. Leon Daudet notes what becomes most recognisable from these heights is a threat. This vision sharpened our sights and opened up a non-human or omniscient perspective, which academic Paula Ahmad suggests is an eco-humanist vision of the Earth that illuminates the precarious existence of life itself. So what did this newfound perspective offer cinema's crime and thriller genres? One of the first significant uses of the helicopter in cinema was thought to be by Nicholas Ray in They Live by Night, during the opening title sequence following the getaway of an escaped convict. Since then, Alfred Hitchcock has twisted and manipulated the bird's eye view in the thriller and crime genres. This aerial view has been used across his films to create tension and suspense, manipulate feelings of unease and distortions of reality embedded in the character's psyche, and to highlight vulnerability and mystery as the story unfolds. In the crime film, the detective is always in danger, seeking out the assailant often at the expense of their own safety. Following from an omniscient, voyeuristic perspective heightens the suspense and tension of the scene, surrounding the detective, and thus the audience, with the unknown. Often following a vehicle, the bird's eye view reflects the directional unravelling of the crime narrative. Exposing these spaces helps examine the threats in the environment and character relations that surround the detective. It foreshadows the dangers yet to come and emphasises that which is obscured and uncharted, the domain of the criminal. To understand this effect, we'll look at a few key examples. In Ivan Sen's Mystery Road, Detective Jay Swan investigates the death of a young Aboriginal woman that occurs on the isolated roads of outback Australia. The remote town of Winton becomes implicated in the crime, and as Jay becomes more involved in the inhabitants' affairs, tensions arise. The remoteness of the grid of rural roads and highways can only be appreciated from above, and exploring the movement along them perfectly signifies the danger and mystery exemplified in the film's title. Follow-up film Goldstone sees an older Jay Swan explore corruption and crime in the titular outback town. The aerial perspective intensifies his insignificance, and the environment is a threat in its own right. Its own character, the run-down outback towns and desert roads, become imbued with power simply by drawing back and revealing the space that surrounds the detective. Here, the roads are no longer paved and run off the beaten track. The lack of structure and the endlessness of the environment helps to reflect the character's own journey. Positioning the landscape as a threat is a device also employed in the television show True Detective. Season 1 sets the two detectives Rust and Marty in America's mysterious and ominous South. Filmed in Louisiana's marshes, woods and towns, Rust and Marty are often pit against the cruelty of their surroundings, as well as that of their adversary. Creator Nick Pizzolatto stated, "There's a contradictory nature to the place and a sort of sinister quality underneath it all. Everything lives under layers of concealment. The woods are thick and dark and impenetrable. On the other hand, you have the beauty of it all from a distance." Like Jay Swan, the vehicle symbolises for the detectives a mode of travel that assists in unravelling the mystery. Much of their relationship develops through the existential conversations they share travelling from place to place. It is this process of movement and direction that enables them to resolve conflict, conflate evidence, and ultimately solve their case. Contrastingly, Season 2 utilises a maze of overlapping LA overpasses and cityscapes to demonstrate the corruption and Kafkaesque nature of the Los Angeles law enforcement. The idea was to highlight scale and connectivity, the big picture that informs these little lives. Pulling back from the action allows for clarity, a release for the viewer and an ability to observe from a new perspective. These aerial angles are reminiscent of the crime scene footage taken by law enforcement and media outlets. From above, we can see the full scale of a situation and understand it from an outside perspective. Perhaps the most fascinating and extreme use of this technique is by Alberto Rodriguez in La Isla Minima, or Marshland. Mark Dorian suggests of the aerial image, to go up is to see more insofar as more things are brought into view, but it is also to see them in a newly transformed way, one that foregrounds the limits of individual objects and their relationships with one another, while at the same time opening vision onto immensity. Dorian's notion comes to life in Rodriguez's aerial bird's-eye cinematography, which is so far removed from the action that it almost reaches the scale of satellite photography. The disorientating, vertiginous shots locate the scenes within the landscape of the marshland town, as well as offering a sense of omniscient clarity that removes the viewer from the chaos of the action below. The aerial bird's-eye shot epitomizes William Blake's concept to see the world in a grain of sand. That is, to allow for the detachment, discernment, immensity, and infinity, so embedded in the cinematic concept of God's eye view.